And let's face it, this inauguration is historic on many accounts. It's the first time we've had a president being inaugurated who had been the president before. It's the first time we were having a president being inaugurated who's had two assassination attempts during the campaign. And it's the first time we've also had a president who has a real threat against them from a foreign entity from Iran. And it's also the first time we're having an inauguration with a president who is coming in on the heels of a bunch of turmoil that occurred when he was leaving office. So it's really a historic inauguration on all accounts. And I think for all the parties involved, it's going to be they're going to have to amp it up to make sure that they're on point with all the security planning.
We knew that the Secret Service and its partners have been planning security for this inauguration for a year or so. But on Friday, it changed. There was the decision made to move it indoors, and the reason given was the weather. How does that impact the plan for securing all of the events, specifically the inaugural, the speech, etc.? How does that change impact the plan?
Well, the Secret Service, when it's planning for the inauguration, always has plans for outdoor events, moving indoor events. The inauguration is no different. I'm sure they had a plan in their back pocket to move the inauguration indoors. Inaugurations have happened before. There's been weather issues with the inauguration, so you always have to be ready to adjust. To me, I think the bigger issue is for the Secret Service and for all of its partners is communication to its partners about the change in plan, and of course the logistics of moving people around and working with the staff to lock down exactly what the details of the move indoors. The overarching security infrastructure is still going to be in place for the inauguration because the assets are there, and the plan itself is still going to move forward because they still have a commitment to secure DC and to secure all the inaugural events.
Now, how does this impact the concern about threats, moving from having this big crowd outside to having a smaller crowd inside?
So everything the Secret Service does, and especially for the inauguration, is based upon threat intelligence. And as we've heard, there's no specific threats to the inauguration, but there are the general threats about lone wolf attackers, foreign actors, cyber actors. So those threats are all taken into account when they're doing the overarching security plan. And of course, with an outdoor event, the biggest threat, as we saw in Butler, Pennsylvania, is the threat from a long distance attack. But of course, when you move something indoors, it mitigates that, which is the case here at the inauguration. Moving it indoors, it negates the threat from long distance attacks.
So, what then? You have 25,000 plus people, military and law enforcement in town to help with events. How does that impact using these resources? What do all those people do now?
Well, I'm sure the Secret Service will make some adjustments with its partners, but overall, the Secret Service uses the three rings of protection approach, an outer ring, a middle ring, and an inner ring. And those assets are still tasked to secure those three rings of protection because under the National Special Security Event umbrella, the Secret Service and its partners have a responsibility to make sure DC itself is safe and all the people in DC are safe. So there's still work to be done and still roles to be filled. And it'll just be a matter of the Secret Service and its partners adjusting where perhaps those personnel are or those assets are to account for these changes in the plan.
And just one more thing about the fencing. There's 30 miles of secure fencing that has been put up around the district, around DC, because of the original plan to have this outside. Considering that those spaces won't be used or won't be needed, at least, do they take this fencing down or does it all stay up, to your knowledge? And this is more of a logistics thing, but it could be a security thing until after the inauguration and all of the events are over?
From a security standpoint and a logistics standpoint, the fencing will stay up until after the inauguration is over. I think for the Capitol Police in particular, January 6th was a stark lesson in perimeter security, and no scale 7-foot fencing is a great asset to have for any type of civil disobedience or potential riots that occur. And we do know that even with the cold, you are going to have some civil disobedience and protests that are occurring in and around DC around the inauguration.
Don Mihalek. Don, you're such a great resource. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you all the time. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you think is important?
The only thing I just want to point out is that this inauguration and all the festivities around it are undertaken and secured by the men and women of the Secret Service and their law enforcement partners who today are working very long and arduous hours to make sure everybody is kept safe.